The UK is on the brink of collapse, with a broken economy, systemic underfunding for public services, workers on strike, illegal immigration, and a cost of living crisis where people are unable to afford basic necessities like food, water, and housing.
Now, the British pound has fallen to its lowest level ever.
And that's not the only issue. Look at the gap between rich and poor.
Another small issue, oh yes, the cost of living.
All whilst the country has had an unelected leader the last 2 years. And when you consider all of this, it's no wonder Britain is crumbling against other G7 nations. But now you want to ask, how on earth did we get here?
The country's got nothing to show for it except the destruction of the economy and the implosion of the Tory party.
You all laughed at me. Well, I have to say, you're not laughing now, are you?
From being a global superpower to ranking as the second most miserable country in the world. Well, actually, it's not hard to see. Just trying to survive in the UK alone is enough evidence for that verdict. With everything around you and everything you rely on declining or grinding to a halt. Take the NHS. It used to be a core example of what universal healthcare could achieve. Now it's borderline ineffective, with nearly 8 million people on the waitlist for crucial appointments or operations. And if you need to go to A&E, you might have to wait for an ambulance and then again in the corridor before being seen. The cause? Years of privatisation. The NHS suffers from bureaucracy, with a number of predatory organisations squeezing the system dry, taking money and preventing it from reaching the bottom of the chain where it's needed. And when COVID hit, it was at its worst. As the world suffered from a pandemic, the UK desperately needed protective equipment. But where did they get this from? Oh, none other than companies best connected to the people in government, who got a free ride to profit from crisis. Oh, and the NHS either didn't receive the product, or the products weren't fit for purpose. In this one scam alone, the taxpayer paid £1.6 billion in contracts to friends of politicians with no competition. This goes without saying the vast understaffing issue the NHS faces. In many roles at the health service, you actually get more money working in McDonald's. And when times are hard, why not pick the latter? Sometimes the NHS is so short, private nurses are brought in from agencies, which can cost up to £2,000 a shift, with the bulk of that going to the agency. It's either this or longer wait times and potentially more lives at risk. And this affects working class people most, who can't afford or don't want private healthcare. And this is only one public service that doesn't work. You see, it's not just the NHS on a national scale. Underfunding is seen repeatedly on local scales. The UK is divided into 317 councils, which all have their own budget and constituents to look after. But what happens when they have no money left?
Birmingham is officially broke. The City Council, the largest local authority in Europe, is effectively bankrupt.
Birmingham is not alone. Nottingham and Woking have also declared effective bankruptcy, with a lot more councils going down the same way without intervention. And this means already underfunded schools, libraries, parks, and other government facilities will essentially stop receiving additional funding, or even basic funding, and have to struggle more, leading to a decrease in the quality of life for those constituents in them councils. But that's if the austerity measures weren't enough. And it's not like the UK has any money left. The country is 2.6 trillion in debt and can be described as hardly livable because the cost of living is so high. The average person can't survive on the average salary of £34,000 a year without struggling for bills or food, let alone the majority of those who are on a wage closer to £12,000 a year. People genuinely can't afford to live, and over the last few years have cut out even necessities and are dragging by on a bare minimum, yet are led to feel like it's the new normal, whilst actively being told by the government they just aren't working hard enough. But when the inflation increases are constantly double the wage increases, what can be expected? And this goes without saying the rising rents and property costs, making it impossible for first-time buyers to even get a house. It's hard to draw this point in, but some are even forced to work 2 jobs to get enough income. And to even travel to some of these jobs, they might have to take the train, which has shot up in price but may never actually show up, due to workers striking for more pay. Or maybe they will drive in their car they can't afford to run, with extortionate fuel costs, tax and insurances before entering certain zones and paying the government more money for the sake of it. But it's fine, with all that money from road taxes, car tax, council tax, ULEZ, you'd presume they can look after the streets. and you'd be completely wrong. It's now believed there are more than 1 million potholes in the UK, with drivers 2 times more likely to damage their car driving on British roads than just 10 years ago. But that's not the only thing unsafe about British streets.
Put it down now. Put down the knife.
Our top story today, a 15-year-old girl has been stabbed to death in the rush hour in South London.
2 teenagers have been sentenced to life in prison at Leeds Crown Court for the murder of a 15-year-old boy.
They are weapons that kill, that can't be bought in shops. So why is it so easy to buy zombie knives online?
In major cities like London, Birmingham, Manchester, knife and gang crime has skyrocketed, leading to fear, robberies, and often deaths. In 2023 alone, there was over 50,000 knife crime offences, and that's just the reported ones. And with an underfunded police force which has seen cut after cut after cut, your emergency may take longer to respond to, or less serious events will either get delayed or ignored. Predominantly theft. It's been reported that cases are rarely prosecuted if it's not a substantial financial amount. But even in extreme instances, abuse and violence can take a long time to investigate or left unsolved, as the police need more people to look into every investigation in a prompt manner. Oh, and when someone does finally go through the court process and gets prosecuted, they may not even go to prison, as the system is overflowing, once again due to underfunding and overstretching, which consequentially means some prisoners are being let out early to free up rooms.
A high-risk prisoner had his release date brought forward, despite a history of stalking, domestic abuse, and a restraining order. Their words, he was a risk to children.
At this point, it's no surprise people want to eventually leave the UK, but that's not the same case for everyone. Right, illegal immigration. The border between the UK and France is highly comparable to the US-Mexico border. I'm not oblivious. It's a tricky topic for YouTube, but it can't be ignored. UK is being defeated by what's been dubbed small boat crossings, with over 127,000 undocumented, untraced people coming to seek asylum in the UK since 2018, sometimes to flee war-torn countries or others just for the better quality of life and to become a dependent on the UK economy. It's become such a politicised conversation over the last decade, even playing a leading role in Britain's exit of the European Union, with leaders not really having a plan and the public not really knowing where to sit.
Well, I have to say, you're not laughing now, are you?
The general consensus is people in the UK don't mind migration where it's controlled, done legally, and those who do come embrace British values, work and contribute to the economy. The economy that is stagnant. After the financial crash, austerity measures, a pandemic, and a botched job of Brexit, the United Kingdom is ironically more divided than ever, and a core factor is the rich and the poor. But it's more complex than that. The rich are embracing luxuries whilst the poor can't afford necessities, with more and more of the country relying on food banks, even those with jobs that are simply not paying them enough to survive. And because the promises of Brexit never fully got implemented by the Tory government, there's still a divide to whether it's a good idea or not, or whether it should be undone, which would defeat democracy, but the British government is a mess. Now you've even got people once again calling for Scotland and Northern Ireland to leave the UK, with the core factor being they don't like all the governing power being in London. It feels too much of a divide, but the only catch is the whole country feels that. London is significantly richer than the rest of the UK, in jobs, in money, in opportunity, and even transport. And with the plans to connect the rest of the UK on a high-speed rail network being delayed and then fully scrapped, more and more people are forced to live in the overcrowded capital. Make no mistake, there's not just a north-south divide, there's a London v everywhere else divide, and there's a clear reason for that. No, it's not just a near billionaire prime minister saying how he's going to take money from the poor and give to the rich, but rather it's built from the past of being a global trading centre and owning a near third of the world under the British Empire, which over time became nothing more than a banking capital. Yes, that's the real answer. Money is where the money is. However, big banks don't just make their money in London.
So-called Panama Papers.
Panama Papers, the massive leak of documents
they take full advantage of what are called tax havens to reduce their tax liabilities through manipulating transfer prices and benefiting from the lenient regulations and the privacy of the remote islands where the money is stored. But it's not just banks that profit from tax havens. No matter if you're a Hollywood star, a dealer, or just have some serious bread, you too can wash your money the other side of the world with no one to bat an eye. Though you can be caught, as we saw when the Panama Papers released. And even the then Prime Minister David Cameron's dad running a fund in Panama to avoid paying tax in the UK. But it's not just the Tories, but even the opposition Labour don't have a clean slate. Back in the 2000s, part of the reason they got kicked out of government was misusing taxpayer money for their own properties like second houses. And as you expected, there's never really any prosecution. When you're rich, you're simply above everyone else. But need I remind you, as this happens, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. But what if I told you it's designed to be that way? It's not just tax havens. The ultra wealthy and international businesses use what are called tax loopholes or exploits to avoid paying tax, yet it's still deemed legal, as those with power to change it are the ones benefiting from it. So when people blindlessly chant tax the rich, it's not just a case of increasing the bracket or the amount paid, but rather an entire reformation of the UK tax code and governing system. The UK is a broken nation, and the financial imbalance is not the only thing which is in desperate need of reform.
I know that under our electoral system, things are tough. We're likely to get fewer seats than the number of votes should deserve.
If you're from the UK, you might already know the country uses what's called first past the post, which is a system where a party needs to get across a certain threshold in order to take government following a general election. And each vote is divided into the 650 parliamentary constituencies, so when one of these constituencies determines a winner for that area, that becomes a seat in parliament, and the party with the most seats wins the government. However, this leaves a big issue, with the likes of the Lib Dems, and even in this election, Reform, being predicted an unproportionate amount of votes to seats. More votes equals less representation. Regardless if you like these smaller parties or not, the system is unfair and needs change. Britain is spiralling on a downwards trajectory and is in desperate need of something new. UK general election is set to take place a few days after posting this video, and as it's predicted to break historic records, it's more crucial than ever you get out to vote. Thank you for watching. If you want to support me, as this is a small YouTube channel, either check out my other videos or engage with this one. It would mean a lot. I've been Tom Hayden, and most importantly, have a great day. Or try to in this economy.